With the Buccaneers season over, we turn our attention to the changes that are coming. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this WTSP edition of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at EKloskyWTSP. We are your credentialed members of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The show is here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share our appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Hopefully, Evan, nobody used that promo code to go see Braden Point play against the Bruins on Tuesday night, but I digress. The season came to an end Sunday night in a really, disappointing loss to the Washington Commanders. I talked about it on the live show afterwards that the Bucs played well enough to win, and to me, it came down to basically two mistakes. It was the fumble, and it was the botched snap by Graham Barton, and I think those proved to be the difference. The defense didn't force a punt. Jaden Daniels, and the Washington Commanders offense 3 times this year. No punts, no turnovers, but they still only scored 23 points, and you would think this Bucs offense would have been able to muster more than that, but no matter how you slice it, no matter what, reasonings or excuses you want to bring up, the season is over and the offseason is officially underway. There are going to be changes coming, some good, some bad in the eyes of fans, critics, media members, whatever the case may be. But if you take a look at the list of pending free agents that the Bucs have, obviously Chris Godwin, Lavonte David, they are the top of the list of players that the Bucs need to bring back. But outside of those two, which of the pending free agents do you think need to be back next season for the Buccaneers?
As far as a need is concerned, I don't know if the Buccaneers need to bring any one of these guys back. I will say, between Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Anthony Nelson, and Shaquille Barrett, at least one of those guys has to come back. Nelson is going to cost I don't think Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is going to be here next season. Just part of a numbers game as well. But also, Nelson, I would say, is probably a dude you want to come back. But it depends what you bring in to fix that edge situation, right? So, you have right now on the docket, the hope is they're going to bring in someone who is a star there at outside linebacker. You need it. If you're going to take the next level, you need it. It's very clear the defense is not the same when it doesn't have that pressure. Todd Bowles was at his best when he had Shaquille Barrett and JPP on the edges, and then Sue and Vea can work on the inside and do some damage. They have the JPP and Yaya Diaby. Now they need the prime Shaq. And you're not going to, between Yaya, you got Chris Braswell, who you just invested a second-round pick in, and they're probably going to put a little bit more responsibility on his plate. Let's say you bring in a significant outside linebacker. That's 3. And then also you talk about Anthony Nelson probably being that 4 with maybe Shaq as the 5. Am I forgetting someone off the edge there? That would be But I mean, you're kind of looking at, I mean, that's kind of the group of 5 there. And if we can put Nelson back in that rotational role, I think that'd be great. He's not going to come cheap, but I would say out of everybody, Anthony Nelson is just a steady Eddie guy and a great depth piece if he's your 3rd or 4th guy on the edge. That's where I think he thrives. I also would say that you can give me Ben Bredesen back. I understand that he's not out of the offensive line as a whole. He's obviously the weakest link. But I with this draft coming up, I don't want to sink another day 2 pick into a guard. As much as I think that would be great, and you can build up this offensive line. If Liam Coen comes back, why not just run it back with this offensive line that had a lot of success? And Bredesen was also playing through a significant shoulder injury. So I get it. You want to upgrade there, but every roster in the NFL is not going to be perfect across the board. And when I look at an area where I think they can completely do what they need to do and insert said player, Ben Bredesen is that guy. So bring him back. Obviously, he's going to get a raise, but I think it wouldn't be an extraordinary type of deal. And otherwise, I probably do lean towards, I don't think they're going to have the opportunity to get Hainsey back, but I would really love to have Hainsey still be that guy if the center and guard get hurt. It seems like Hainsey snuck in there a couple of times at guard this season in a special package or at the end of one of the games where they were winning in a blowout. He snuck in there at guard. So I'm wondering if maybe you can try to convince him to come back, because I think that if you lose, if Barton gets injured or one of those guards get injured, I think Hainsey would be a very formidable option there to step in and get the job done. So, and obviously he knows he's one of the brightest guys in the offensive room. So that's kind of my thing. Then you talk about like Sterling Shepard, Mike Edwards. I think those are smaller pieces that can come back. I already mentioned Shaq, and Gaines will probably get priced out. It's just tough. You got to look. When doing this thought experiment, you got to look at a lot of who they're drafting, what they're bringing in, and what the cap situation is going to look like when you make certain moves. And I'm kind of already anticipating some of those moves, which is why, I think Gaines as a depth piece is great. But is that going to have to be a casualty of some other things that they want to do? Those are the debates we have to go in. But if we just ignore kind of everything, I think the 2 guys that I would say, hey, let's run it back: Anthony Nelson, Ben Bredesen. Once we, ignoring Godwin and Lavonte, who I think everybody's on board with returning.
You'd be surprised. There are some people that think that the Bucs should let Godwin walk because of the emergence of Jalen McMillan. I am not one of those people. I realize how great he was and how much better this team.
Does everybody who has that opinion? Everybody realizes that Chris Godwin was en route to first team All Pro, right?
Yeah. It would have contended with Jamar Chase for that Triple Crown at the pace that he was on.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. He obviously fits. He moved back into the slot. The injury he suffered, as I said, when it happened, if it were another knee type of injury where it was a ligament, I would be very concerned. But this was a clean break sort of fracture type deal. The bone will heal up. The bone will strengthen. Chris will be back to being Chris. And more importantly, his knees and keeping that balance in his ligaments, that's unaffected. And Chris is as diligent as anybody, as disciplined as anybody. Yeah, you absolutely want Chris back. And by the way, it helps you salary cap wise. So there's also that ripple effect too, that next year it would actually be a plus to bring Chris back in terms of salary cap versus if you let him walk and you got to eat all that money.
Yeah, well, and the last thing that I'll throw in there is, Ben Bredesen was one of the guys that I brought up as well. And you mentioned that along that starting five, he's probably the weak link. I would say, if the way he played was your weakest link, that's pretty solid. I'll take that. So I'm with you 100%. I think those are probably outside of Lavonte and Chris. Those are the two guys that I would put a star next to and want to keep moving forward. But the biggest question surrounding the Bucs following their disappointing playoff exit, that's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give your taxes their undivided attention while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full service real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. The new Locked On NFL is here, and it's 2 shows every day. You got the Madman Tyler Rowland kicking off your morning. Then you can stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. So make it your second listen on the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Evan, you brought up a great point when you and I were texting earlier. Might need to get Tony Wiggins on this show and ask what he's hearing about Liam Coen and the Jags. Of course, Tony Wiggins is the host of Locked On Jaguars. And he's pretty dialed in. So I might have to have him on to see what he thinks about this Liam Coen situation. But there were multiple moments throughout this season and throughout Sunday's game, most recently, that once again brought up whether or not Todd Bowles is fit for the Bucs or the head coaching job for this team. 3 straight division titles. That's awesome. He's increased the overall win total by 1 each season. That's cool. But now 1-3 in the playoffs, and the Bucs once again did not get the job done. There have been severe clock management problems. He is the one in charge of a defense that absolutely imploded all over themselves this season. Do you feel like Todd Bowles should return next season?
I'm going to say this under the caveat of here's the problem with the Todd Bowles discourse. And this is the problem that Jason Light and the Glazers are also dealing with. This isn't about Todd Bowles returning. It's about losing Liam Coen. That is the whole essence of this debate. Like, if you were to tell me, if I were to throw this question out to Bucs fans, would you prefer Liam Coen leaving for Jacksonville or firing Todd Bowles to keep Liam Coen in Tampa? The answer is going to be, majority-wise, keep Liam Coen. But if I also send out a question to a lot of the listeners out there, if you can get Todd Bowles and Liam Coen back next season, would you accept that, or do you want Todd Bowles fired anyway? I think the majority would say, I'll run it back with Todd and Liam. It's more predicated on people are using the anti-Todd Bowles narrative to push the keep Liam narrative, which I understand. I do not believe the Bucs can let Liam Coen leave. I think it would be really disheartening for the offense to have its 4th offensive coordinator in as many years. for an offense who just came off one of its best seasons in franchise history to lose a mind who obviously has the goods. And while Dave Canales was an amazing culture guy who clearly got this offense heading in the right direction with a lot of the things they were doing, he had blind spots. The rushing game was terrible still. He was stubborn in that regard. And throughout games had significant lulls before figuring it out again. Liam, the scripted, by the way, and Dave Canales did not have one scripted drive for a touchdown as well. Liam Coen's game scripts were incredible. The Buccaneers, almost always found ways to score points, if not touchdowns. And being top 5 in passing and rushing is a tremendous situation that nobody else in the league did besides the Bucs. So a lot of this debate hinges on, are the Buccaneers going to lose Liam Coen in the process of keeping Todd Bowles? And sadly, if it gets to that point, I do think the Glazers might have to lean in favor of keeping Liam, because he is the future and Todd is not. And that's not to say that Todd isn't good at his job. I think Todd is good at his job. I also think Todd has weaknesses, but Todd doesn't have a long runway here. He just doesn't. He's 61 years old. He's mentioned he's not going to do this forever. He's probably got 3-4 years left in him. Liam Coen could be your head coach for 12 years. Liam Coen can also be a terrible head coach and a great offensive mind. We don't know those things, but we do know it is a lot easier to keep an amazing offensive mind as your head coach and get a defensive coordinator who, if very successful, will stay as defensive coordinator for a decent amount of time. Jesse Minter, hot defensive coordinator on the block. I don't hear him getting any interviews right now. Everyone was all up over him. The Chargers defense, look at the turnaround. Look what this guy did. Came in from Michigan, has great NFL loins. He's not getting any interviews. And that is a hotshot, young NFL defensive coordinator. Steve Spagnuolo. I understand he had one head coaching experience that didn't go well, but what he's done with the Chiefs, it's ridiculous that he has not gotten more calls for head coaching gigs. He's still with Andy Reid. So just when you lay out just how this is, and it's just business, I think it would be bad business to let Liam Coen walk, to keep a guy who just is not the future and is just going to continually fall into a cycle of, if we bring in another guy who succeeds, we're going to lose him too. It is. That's the NFL. It's an offensive business. Most head coaches are offensive minded. It is what it is. We can call it fair, unfair. And I just believe if we had to choose between the options, I think the Glazers are going to have to make that tough call. And I don't necessarily think that's the right thing for the team either. I think there's a bad ripple effect that happens because of that, especially on the defensive side of things. And, a whole different playbook instead of communication and so on and so forth. But one thing I do know is that if you bring Liam Coen back next year, the offense is going to be a juggernaut. Barring any injuries, right? Even without Chris Godwin for half of the year, it was a juggernaut. And the only time they really showed cracks was without Chris and without Mike at the same time. And you can look back at that Niners game and just kind of see the well run dry for Liam Coen. But the goal, I think, would be to have Todd Bowles and Liam Coen back in 2025 and really give this team a shot. That I truly believe they can be a Super Bowl contender next year. I've said this since the offseason. All right. I said I thought this was a playoff caliber team, and I thought 2025 was the year. I still believe 2025 is the year with a significant addition on the edge. And it would be a shame if Bowles and Liam couldn't see that thing through.
All right. Well, Evan is breaking out the crystal ball one last time for at least a little while. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending the Foo Fighters concert last year. It was an unbelievable show and definitely in my top 5 concerts of all time. But now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming concert that I'm going to in February using Game Time. And with Game Time Picks, I found an amazing deal and could see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was a particularly good one, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing showed the total up front, so I had no surprise fees when I got to checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Wrapping things up here on a WTSP edition of Locked On Bucs, and I'm sure we're going to have the crystal ball return prior to free agency and the draft, but this is going to be the last time for at least a couple of months here that we break it out. The crystal ball, Evan, it certainly had its moments this season.
It didn't last week.
Other times it was a little foggy. We might need to buy you a new carrying case or storage case.
I got to be more consistent. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we need the velvet lining so that it doesn't get all dusty and everything. But what are your 3 biggest, boldest predictions for the Buccaneers offseason?
Number 1 boldest prediction, they will trade for a significant edge outside linebacker. They will trade for a star. That's going to be my boldest prediction. I don't think they're going to go use a first round pick to bring in that edge. I think they are going to acquire the veteran presence and give them a fat contract. So I think they're going to make headlines with that move. And, I'm talking about guys like Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson. Those 2 are probably at the top of my list. I don't know if Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett will be available, right? I don't think they will be, which is why I'm not mentioning them. But if they are made available, hell yeah, they should be thrown into the pile. But the 2 names to watch, Trey Hendrickson, Max Crosby, I'll say for a bold prediction, the Buccaneers will land one of them. With a backup option being Khalil Mack, if they want to go the free agency route. But I think that they could the Trey Hendrickson, I was talking with Josh Capo of Pewter Report, an amazing mind, and he gave me some insight into Trey Hendrickson, what a trade would be. And I think that would only cost him a 2nd and a 5th on top of giving him a new deal. For Jason Light, you know what? This leads me to my next point. So give me the number 2 prompt.
Oh, all right. Yeah. I was just going to say, if the Bucs ended up with Trey Hendrickson giving my geographical location, I would have so much fun torturing so many people with that type of move. So yeah, fingers crossed that that's it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see Max Crosby join the team, but yeah, that would be awesome. So, all right. Well, what's your second big, bold prediction for the offseason?
The bold prediction, of course. So I said 2nd and a 5th. You trade a significant asset away to make this move work. Well, how about you don't make a selection in the first round this year? Jason Light's going to trade back and do kind of what he did in 2020. Was it 2021 where he got Logan Hall at the start of the 2nd round?
Yeah.
Go that route. I think the Buccaneers will not make a first round selection. That's my second bold prediction.
I don't know if I like that, Evan. I don't like that nearly as much as I liked your first bold prediction.
But they're married. You essentially get the asset back.
I know. I would just be, I've already started pounding the table for the Bucs to draft Benjamin Morrison because he's going to fall to where he shouldn't in the first round.
He very well is on my top 3 of guys they need to be looking at. Yes, I do agree with that.
Hey, look at us agreeing on something that's college football related. Hot diggity dog.
As long as Benjamin Morrison does not win on Monday.
Well, he won't play because he's out.
That's right. Yeah. I mean the team. I mean his team.
Oh, well, no, we're not going to talk about that. All right, your third big bold prediction for the Buccaneers offseason. We have trading for Crosby or Hendrickson or a tier 1 edge rusher. We have trading out of the first round to pick up an asset to use on that tier 1 edge rusher. So what's number 3 here?
You let me know if this is bold enough, but Jamel Dean will not return next season. They're going to cut him or trade him.
Okay. I wouldn't say that it's super bold. It's kind of like the honey barbecue option at a wings spot that
that's
you
why I got to.
But I think number 1 was so spicy that it averages out and we can take it as a bold prediction. I said the same thing. I've been saying that I don't think Dean's going to be part of this team basically all season.
That's why I want to try to provide. I want to provide something that's chewy, but I also don't want to. I don't want to, give you a kind of a. So let me back. Let me try to give a fourth. Let me try to give a bonus to counterbalance it. I guess here's my. I'll go bold prediction. Todd Bowles and Liam Coen will be back in 2025.
Okay, I like that. That's somewhat bold, I would say.
But if we couple those two, it equals a significant bold, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because after what we were just talking about and what you kind of laid out, talking about Todd Bowles' situation and what he's done and what kind of decisions the Glazers might have, that's you can couple that into being bold enough that Liam doesn't get offered the Jags job, or if he gets offered the Jags job, he doesn't take it to stay in Tampa. So that in and of itself is pretty bold. So
I will say if Liam Coen is offered the Jags head coaching job, it's either going to be he's a Bucs head coach or a Jags head coach. I don't see him turning down a head coaching gig. I can see him maybe pulling out of the interview if he doesn't like it. But if he goes the distance and he gets that job, there's only 32 of those suckers. You do not turn down head coaching opportunities. I get it. It might not be the sexy situation. You out there might say, why would you want to leave the Jags and Trent Baalke and all this crap that they have? It is hard to get a head coaching gig in the NFL, and you do not pass up that opportunity. Bobby Slowick is a great example. Hotshot offensive coordinator last year. It didn't sing in 2024. And his name isn't being thrown around as much, right, versus last year. So that's just an example. You just don't know what's going to happen. Next year, Liam Coen can come to town, and Evans and Godwin can get injured week 1, and boom, you're just absolutely screwed out of the gate. So you got an opportunity in front of you. Usually you take it. So I don't see him turning the head coaching job down if he goes that far. I can see him maybe peeling out of the interview search midway through.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let everybody know what's going on over on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com.
Final episode of The Blitz. Sad to say it, but we will be doing a season review recap / what you need to know entering the offseason, as we won't be producing another Blitz show until the beginning of September. Crazy for me to say that, but James will join us one more time. Remember, you can tune in 8:30 in the mornings on 10 Tampa Bay. You can also check out our 10 Tampa Bay YouTube page and our 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. Though the Blitz will be up on Saturday via those outlets versus 8:30 in the morning on Sunday. And now we will be turning our attention to Tampa Bay Lightning. Hopefully they're heading back to the postseason. We expect that of them. And Rays baseball will be, pitchers and catchers report February 9th, believe it or not. That's 3 weeks away, as crazy as that sounds. So we'll be staying busy here as always. But yeah, we're gonna also decompress, just like the players and the coaches, after a long season, and have one last episode to send us out.
All right. Well, please make sure you're checking out everything that Evan is doing over on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. Follow on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, at eCloskey WTSP. Become an insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. And of course, make sure that you are following on YouTube with those notifications turned on and wherever you get your podcasts. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.